Gosh, you know, a week ago I was in Chicago where I made a couple of presentations, and the person who introduced me there told similar lies to the ones Randy just told, and I was thinking how nice it would have been if my parents were still around. My dad would have been impressed, but my mom probably would have believed it. I'm hoping that none of you really believed all the things you heard. If you're not comfortable, please move around. If you need to stand up and stretch a bit, go ahead. When Tim called me and asked me if I'd spend some time with you tonight, I was delighted. Nobody has to wind me up very much to get me to talk about broadband. So tonight is one of those special nights. I've met many of you before dinner and look forward to visiting with you about a subject that's near and dear to my heart. It really is a pleasure to be with you. Arrowwood is a favorite place for me, and we had a very leisurely drive up this morning. In fact, it was so routine that Ellen and I, when we were much younger, we used to count cows. Now there are no cows to count. So today we look at bumper stickers. And if you think that the age of connectivity isn't upon us, then you haven't driven on highways 61, 494, and 94, because the drivers there emphatically disagree with you. Here are a few of the ones that we saw. The internet, enabling morons worldwide to express their jackass opinions. My honors student knows more about the internet than the United States Congress. If at first you don't succeed, you must be loading Windows. And my favorite, everyone is entitled to my opinion. And that brings us to tonight and my opinions that you are going to be stuck listening to, but I hope I will at least give you something to think about. Here's one opinion. I believe broadband is just as important today as electricity was to the 20th century and as the locomotive and railroads were to the 19th. I believe the communities and businesses served by the company I headed until this year are proving that every day. And the glimpses of the future that I have been able to witness because of my place in the broadband community tell me that we haven't really yet seen anything in the world of big broadband, and I would submit to you that we in Minnesota are woefully underprepared for the world that's emerging today. I believe that it's important to think about where we are. A couple of weeks ago, and I know we have some friends from Bemidji here, I shuddered when I read an editorial in the Bemidji Pioneer. I've read the Pioneer much of my life. I spent 30 years in newspapering and had occasions to read newspapers from all over Minnesota. But the editor of the Bemidji Pioneer wrote the following in an editorial. While we agree this, broadband, is an issue for some communities in rural Minnesota, we are glad it is not a problem for Bemidji and the immediate area. We are lucky in Bemidji to be so connected. In fact, we are ahead of the curve in many instances for cities our size. As a regional hub for commerce, healthcare, and education, it is critical for Bemidji to succeed, and to do that, we need to have high levels of access to broadband connectivity. In its lobbying efforts, the Greater Minnesota Partnership should remember not to paint with too broad a brush when it comes to characterizing issues in rural areas, lest outsiders get the wrong impression that all of outstate Minnesota is afflicted with a particular problem. Sure, general ideas of solving funding inequities and improving education initiatives are issues for us all and should be addressed. But when it comes to specific issues such as broadband access, effort should focus on those individual communities where it will help the most. Bemidji is among the fortunate communities, but any suggestion that Minnesota, yes, even Bemidji, is in great position is incorrect, and more importantly, detrimental to efforts to try and make us competitive. The facts are unattractive. Not only is Minnesota not competitive, it is losing ground. What's more, the goals that the first governor's broadband task force set in 2010 were woefully inadequate. That task force said that by 2015, all Minnesotans should have access to data download speeds between 10 and 20 megabits and upload speeds between 5 and 10 megabits. Folks, to call those speeds broadband is ridiculous. The high-speed world today is operating at a base level of a gigabit, which is 50,000 times faster than 20 megabits. So think about that for a moment. State residents today access the internet at an average download speed of 6.7 megabits. That's 25th among states, 2 positions worse than Minnesota was in a year ago. So we're not solving this problem very well. The task force also said that Minnesota would be in 2015 among the top 5 states in the nation in both overall internet speed and internet penetration. Minnesota, from the standpoint of penetration, ranks 19th among the states, a gain of 5 spots in the last 3 years, but hardly on pace to put us in the top 5 in the next 2 years. On the policy side of things, there has been virtually no progress at all. In fact, none. Although Senator Matt Schmidt of Red Wing is currently on a listening tour of Minnesota with many of our colleagues here today, listening to things that people are saying so he can begin preparing legislation that will help from a policy aspect move us ahead. Now, if I were you, I'd be looking at me and saying, so why is this important? Do we really care how much internet speed we have? The fact of the matter is, that's a very legitimate question. It's also one that I dearly love to answer. So let me talk for a moment about the applications that are emerging that will literally touch every aspect of our lives, and none of them runs on as little as 20 megabits of download capacity, not even close. And there is no question that each of us is going to want these applications available to us and to our family members. Allow me then to take a few moments to tell you about things that are ready for the marketplace, providing the internet capacity is available. In Burlington, Vermont, where 42 languages are spoken in its high school, a newly developed program is helping those students and their parents understand the lessons and how to become acclimated to their new country. Think about a high school in which there are 42 languages spoken. Amazing. In Winona, Minnesota, and I'm pretty proud of this one, a new telehealth product now allows seniors and handicapped residents, both within Winona and outside it, to see, literally, their doctor whenever they need without having to leave their homes. And the doctor has available a number of diagnostic tools, stethoscope, and many other devices to help him better judge his patient's condition. In Chattanooga, Tennessee, a high school class is working with a professor and a class at the University of Southern California to study underwater life and the motions of the seabed through microscopes that the students are manipulating from 2,200 miles away. In Lake City, Minnesota, an orchard operator now has improved quality control by having his apples examined inside and out by a new scanning device, the results of which are read in Copenhagen, Denmark, and transmitted back to the U.S. before the apple reaches the end of the conveyor. In Richmond, Virginia, and by the way, I had a first-hand example of this just a week ago. In Richmond, Virginia, credit card transactions from around the world are examined at the speed of light and fraud attempts averted by the sensitivity of the equipment to inconsistencies in buyer behavior that could signal problems. I had somebody make a charge on my credit card in a foreign country, and less than 2 minutes after that charge was made, American Express called me to get my reaction to the purchase. In central Iowa, the operator of a farm of several thousand acres operates his combine from a cab that looks like the cockpit of a 767 without having to do more than study the monitors. No, sir, not one hand on a wheel. In Michigan, several auto plants utilize automatic inspection equipment to study vehicles as they are assembled to make sure that when they get to the end of the line, they are ready for the road. Those results are read 600 miles away. And in Warren, Ohio, and Fort Wayne, Indiana, two primary examples of Rust Belt decay, technology is being used to revitalize economies and to restore vigor to those cities. And there's also the ridiculous. Just a few miles south of here, an app has been developed that allows those of us with pets, when we are traveling, to call our home, use our cell phone to trigger a device that calls our pets to an area where we can see them, and if we like what we see, dispense doggy or kitty treats to them to reward them for their good behavior. Now, I imagine a number of you are thinking, you know, that's interesting, but why should I really care about these things? So let me tell you about some reasons why I care. The U.S. currently spends $1 trillion annually, 6.4% of our gross domestic product, on welfare programs, and language gaps are a major reason for the spending. Think back to Burlington, Vermont, and the program there and what it might do. The U.S. today spends more than $2 trillion, 55% of the money that it spends on health care to do supervisory care. Think about the savings that could be realized if technology can enable seniors like me to live at home independently for, say, even 1 or 2 years longer, while still being safe and secure and getting the advice that we need to live healthy lives. The world today is being overpopulated at an amazing rate. And as that population growth occurs, a proportionate loss of cropland occurs. I'm sure many of you have heard about China, where the urban migration has resulted in the clearing of great areas of cropland for building. Today's technology is the difference between starvation for a hungry world and health, because it is technology called precision agriculture that's making sure that each square inch of soil is producing a maximum benefit. Minnesota broadband access and use. It is said in research performed by Connected Nations just a year ago, could benefit to the tune of $2.79 billion each year if we had border-to-border broadband. High-speed internet is necessary for a vital community. It's a top priority for businesses looking to choose a location. Tim was telling me about one that you heard about earlier today. I could share with you, I guess, hundreds of similar examples. It can improve access to top quality health care regardless of where you live and work. It improves education, and students who don't use the internet in school, it has been proved, are horribly disadvantaged in the workplace. To these facts, add these. Greater Minnesota's two top internet providers in terms of customers and geography offer download speeds up to 30 megabits and upload speeds of 4 megabits. Number 3 offers download up to 50 and upload up to 2. And the up to phrase is very, very important, and it's not very well understood. But here's what it means. It means that ISPs today have customers, although they don't know it, share bandwidth, which means the 20 and 50 megabit offerings might actually be available, say, from 2 to 4 a.m. We need to do something. The cold, hard fact is that none of the applications I mentioned will run on 30 megabit service, and the state's 10 megabit goal is based more, I am sad to say, on what companies today offer than what we as citizens need. It is the critical reason that the broadband goal you tomorrow will explore would not just be nice, it is absolutely necessary. If Minnesota is going to be competitive and our communities vital and vibrant, we simply must do better. Warren, Ohio leaders were much like many of our leaders today back in 1960, when its manufacturing population had grown to 59,557. That number today is 41,550. It is the reason that they are looking to technology to bail them out of a horrible problems. Folks, we simply aren't well positioned for progress, but it's really not too late to do something about it, and I believe the progress both can and should start here, and I hope it will, because I know that all of us care deeply about our community.